Hi there. Welcome to our team, A Therapist Spotlight. My name's Emma. My pronouns are they, them. I'm the office person, everything person here at Positive Space Consulting. When you send us an email, I'm the first person that you talk to, and today I'm going to be your host. Positive Space Consulting is by and for the queer community. We offer virtual mental health counseling and to us LGBTQIA+ support here in Ontario, Canada. We have a diverse team of therapists with lived experience here to support our queer family and meet you wherever you're at. This is definitely a place to be yourself. Our team is a mini-series focused on and about our team here at Positive Space Consulting to give you the opportunity and anyone interested to know a little bit more about our unique team and get to know them better. And today we have a very special guest, one of our newest members to the team, Sawyer Johnson. They, them, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Emma. Thanks so much for having me.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little bit nervous at first, as always, but here we are. So Sawyer and I, we're going to start with the land acknowledgement first, and we're just going to kind of go in between in and out because Sawyer is joining us from
Calgary, Alberta.
And I'm in Ontario. Our practice is in Ontario, but Sawyer is joining us from Alberta, and they are registered in Ontario, so they'll be able to serve anybody in this province. Positive Space Consulting is a mental health care practice devoted to supporting the development of a society that thrives through including, valuing, and celebrating the inherent uniqueness in us all. It is also our mission to foster a deeper connection to self and to the world around us. Positive Space Consulting is a team of practitioners who identify as settlers and who live on Turtle Island. Positive Space Consulting recognizes that its practice and the contributions of its family of practitioners take place on traditional Indigenous territories across Ontario. We recognize the 46 treaties and other agreements that cover this territory now called Ontario. Today, the province of Ontario is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Each nation is unique in their worldview, language, and histories. And we gather here in the spirit of openness with a commitment to continue to recognize and reflect upon the important work ahead. We are committed to advocating for all of the requests by the Indigenous people of this land to be granted immediately by our government. We ask that you join us in honoring this history and in moving forward in partnership and collaboration as we learn and unlearn together. Everyone here at Positive Space Consulting is grateful and honors the fact that we contribute and work and live in this territory. We would like to acknowledge the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have been the custodians of this land as their ancestors were, and who continually respect and contribute to the sustainability of Ontario and all of its communities across this province. Positive Space Consulting is honored and committed to collaborating with Indigenous clients, practitioners, and communities throughout the province of Ontario and Canada.
As I said before, I'm in Calgary, Alberta, so I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, where they are located, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising of the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Good Stoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation region of Alberta, Region 3. As a queer and trans person, I believe it's of the utmost importance that we recognize Two-Spirit, queer, and trans Indigenous folks in Mohkinstsis that are disproportionately impacted by racism, homophobia, and transphobia are also the people who do the disproportionate amount of advocacy and activism work in our city, province, and country and world that allow for other people from the queer community to thrive.
Thank you, Sawyer. Here at Positive Space Consulting, we are devoted to working only with therapists who are committed to the continual understanding through education, exploration, and engagement with Indigenous history, reconciliation, and the impacts of colonialism. We as a practice are committed to supporting the mental health of Indigenous practitioners and Indigenous 2S LGBTQIA+ folks accessing our services. Thank you for contributing to that, Sawyer. I think that was really well done, and I'm glad we got to do that together. So once again, Sawyer, welcome. Here we are, Therapist Spotlight. Today, you are our special guest. So let's get right to it. Why don't you start off by let us get to know you. What's your story? Who is Sawyer? Yeah, please.
Yeah, that's a big question. Like, who am I? It's a big question, but I was thinking and pondering about who I was, because we like to be reflective in this world. So I guess I'll kind of start out with my identity, a couple pieces of my identity as to who I am. So I'm a queer, transgender, non-binary, transmasc person. And I am a social worker. I have been a social worker for many years. I recently graduated with my Master of Social Work. So that's a big part of my identity as to like who I am, is what I do and how I support the community. My story. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for in terms of my story?
I guess you can touch on maybe what are some of your hobbies, what you like to do, where you're at, maybe why you're in Alberta, just a little bit about you. I guess because it's gonna go into our next question, which is gonna talk about what's your queer story, what's your gay story. But just a little bit brief about who Sawyer is. You can also briefly talk about your ice machine. We should have actually brought the ice machine to this little interview here, because it's become quite a you thing within our staff.
Okay. Yeah. So I was born in Calgary, Alberta. Born and raised, never left, thought about leaving. But I think the reason why I've stayed for so long is I feel like a deep commitment to the land in Calgary, Alberta, in Treaty 7, and the people within that land. I think Calgary's kind of notorious for people leaving. Um, Leaving Calgary and moving to like Toronto or Vancouver or like a bigger city. But queer and trans people still exist within this space, and I feel a deep commitment to working with those folks as well as the folks in Ontario. Um, I love listening to podcasts. Podcasts are like a huge part of my life. I don't really watch TV or movies, so I'm consistently engaged with audio. I actually made a podcast a couple years ago because like everybody present has made a podcast. But I made it for one of my social work practicums. And I did a lot of academic work on podcasting as a social work practice. So it's a really big part of my life. And I recently got into ice making. Very like the staff at Potted Space Consulting have really attached this ice maker that I recently got onto who I am as a person, and I'm totally into that. So it's a nugget ice maker, which means it's not regular ice; it's specific ice that is like flakes that are kind of put back into a little ice cube. And for me, like as a neurodivergent person, it's like a really solid sensory experience. And so, you know what? It's becoming part of my personality. I tell everybody to get a nugget ice maker if they're like looking to invest in themselves. Yeah, I have a partner and a senior dog. My partner is lovely. My senior dog is the light of my life. Sometimes my partner gets a little jealous of my relationship with my dog. Yeah, I think overall my life is a lot better than it used to be. I think there were a lot of moments in the last probably like 10, 15 years where it wasn't this good. And so I think I like to say that like I don't understand people's stories because I didn't live their stories, but I've been in the client seat and I've been in a place where it felt very hopeless and like things were never going to get better. And then through work of like my personal work and work with other professionals, that I was able to kind of come to a place of transformation. And like there's still hard days, but more lovely days than there are hard days now, which is like a wonderful experience to be able to have, because I never had that for a very long time. So I guess that's kind of like a short snippet of my life.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for opening up and being vulnerable there. And
Mhm.
I'm really happy to hear that, you know, through your journey that you're able to like say that right now is an okay time, and and the hard work you've done, and that's really beautiful. And that kind of like leads into the next question, because I think it probably goes into you as a trans person. Would you like to share your journey there? Would you like to share your journey as a trans person, or your coming out story, or whatever that may be?
Sure. It actually kind of goes into the podcasting thing. Going back to the podcasting thing. Okay, so we'll get to that later. But so I didn't come out until I was about 23. So I came out a little bit later in life, not like super late in life, but like I wasn't a teenager when I came out. In high school, they actually used to refer me as the token straight person.
What?
Um, because I hung out with only queer people, and they were like, "Oh, you're the only straight person that we hang out with," and so, yeah, that was weird because that did not end up being the truth. But anyways, I digress. So I came out actually while I was in my Bachelor of Social Work degree. I had just taken an Indigenous People and Trauma course, and it was a block week course, and it involved a lot of internal self-reflection and like spirituality and really like looking deep within ourselves. And I was talking to a friend outside of the Faculty of Social Work at the time, and I was like, I think I'm gay. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm gay. And so that's kind of how that came out, but I was still very much identifying as a cisgender woman. Weird. Um, and then I started hanging out with a lot of non-binary trans masc people. They just kind of started popping in my life a lot. And when they would get top surgery, or they would start hormones, or they would like explore something new within themselves, I would cry and I'd be so happy for them. And later on, I realized that that was because I really just deeply wanted all of those things for myself. And so, but back to the podcasting thing. So I told my parents because I was coming out in this podcast, and I didn't want them to hear the podcast and find out I was queer without me telling them. So I just told them on the phone, and it didn't go super well. But I acknowledged that that my parents have come a long way, and that I have a lot of privilege associated with like family acceptance. But it didn't start out that way. It was very much a struggle at the beginning, and I had a boyfriend at the time, and I think that was very confusing for my parents and confusing for me too. um, but yeah, and so a couple years after I came out as queer, I came out as non-binary because I started dating my current partner, and I was like, I can't hold this in anymore. This is something that I think I really want to explore. So I came out as non-binary. And then slowly, as kind of the time progressed, I didn't go on hormones right away. It wasn't something that I was like ready to do, which I think is an important piece to like the experience of trans people, is that not all trans people want to medically transition, and not all trans people want to medically transition as soon as they come out. And some do. Like the trans experience is an experience that is like different for everybody. But I started going on hormones about a year ago, on testosterone, and that's been like a huge change for my dysphoria. And yeah, and I'm trying to get top surgery, but as some trans mask folks will know who are looking to get top surgery, they want you to be very thin to get top surgery. And so I am actually labeled as too fat to get top surgery. And so I'm trying to find a workaround to be able to get top surgery. But right now, everyone in Calgary has rejected me because I'm too fat.
Didn't even know that was a thing. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah. So fat phobia within the gender affirming healthcare system is a huge thing. And so I want to reach out to anybody who is experiencing that as well, is that like you are not alone. There are people that are experiencing this too, and to, like, not let that fat phobic bullshit come into like who you feel you are as a person. Like you are not any less valid or any less important, and your body is not bad or not good enough. That is just this system of oppression that is trying to take people down. And I'm like willing to share my story on how I'm gonna try to get top surgery. However, I'm able to work that around. But yeah, it's like it's a thing.
Wow. Well, now we're on the segment bullshit that pisses Emma off. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That is actually really beautiful. I'm really touched, but also very like angry that that's a thing, because if you were to have had breast cancer, for instance, they wouldn't say that to you. Wow. Yeah, let's totally touch base on that if you're open to it later on, because I think that's going to help a lot of people here at Positive Space, and then also just in our community in general, because that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And wow, I guess that will lead into the next question of what you said, which is basically, and so you're new here, you've been here for like a little bit now, and you also are new to stepping into the field as being a registered social worker. Although you've been doing social work for a while now, you're kind of like, an adult now on your own. What do you want to be when you grow up? And you're kind of there. So the question is, what sustains your inspiration, and how does it influence your work at Positive Space Consulting? What influences you? What inspires you? What thrives you to work at in social work, but also in an organization like this that caters to our people, to our community?
Yeah, so I was reflecting on this one and like how deeply I wanted to share about this, and like why not go into it, right?
If you're comfortable.
Yeah, so like who is my biggest inspiration is like 20-year-old Sawyer, for sure. So like I have struggled with like substance use and like complex mental health stuff. And when I was in my early 20s, I like didn't know what to do, and I felt very trapped in my life and didn't feel like there was a way out, and it was just like filled with a lot of darkness, and it just it was not good. It did not feel good. It felt like almost like claustrophobic in my own darkness. And so why that inspires me is because I want to be the therapist that little Sawyer needed. Because I deserved to have a queer and trans therapist to reach out to when I was struggling with this gender identity stuff and this queer stuff, and I deserved to have somebody that I could go to. And at that time there was nobody that was like, there weren't a lot of people that were out. I didn't know how to explain what I needed. There weren't organizations in Calgary that were like going for trans rights at that time. There is one now, but so I do it for them. Like I do it for little Sawyer that really deserved so much better. And I look at some of the clients that I've worked with in the past and that I hope to work with in the future, and I see a little piece of me in them, and not in a way that is like off boundaried or um that makes me like unable to do my job, but that I see like that they deserve to have a queer and trans therapist that gets it and believes in them and is willing to like work with them at all costs, and like that. And like I had therapists that broke up with me because I was too much to handle. And like that's, from an attachment perspective, that is the number one thing you don't do, is you don't tell somebody that they're too much to handle. And that you're, yeah. And so I think just trying to be the therapist that I deserved when I was in so desperate need of that, I think is what like inspires me, as well as just the queer and trans community in general. I think I really have wanted to work with the queer and trans community for a long time, as like a consistent basis of what I do for work. Like I've worked with queer and trans people throughout my work, but I've never worked for an organization that really, that like Positive Space Consulting. So I think just the community in general just continues to inspire me and make me angry at the world, and makes me want to continue to do the work that I'm doing. Um, but yeah, I think that's what I would say for like my biggest inspiration. Yeah.
I think that is such a common sort of answer around everybody on our team, because even though I'm not a therapist, I do this job for the exact same reasons you said. Kind of brings tears to my eyes because we didn't have that when we were younger. And it's when I see you people do your work, it's so much joy because our community needs it. Like people are out to get us. And I always say social workers are the real heroes. They go out there and do a lot of the hero work. Yeah, and that also now leads to the next question. God, you gave me tears, Sawyer. Which is, so based on that, what can your clients expect from, like, what is your approach to therapy? What can a client expect from having a session with Sawyer?
Yeah, so I would say the top two words that come to my mind, as to what, like who I am as a social worker and like how I provide therapy, is like deeply relational and deeply curious. So I am of the belief that the relationship that you develop with your therapist is of the utmost importance to be able to ensure that you're able to kind of develop other healthy dynamics within your life. And so sometimes people have really struggled to maintain dynamics in their life that feel good for them and feel happy and feel fulfilled and nourishing. And so I believe that the relationship between a therapist and a client can be so deeply influenced by the way that they are in relationship with each other. So a lot of what you can expect from working with me is that I will come from a place of like complete non-judgment. I always like to say that like it's really, really hard to shock me, because I've heard so many different stories and people think that I'm gonna be like, my gosh, like what, I can't believe you told that to me. No. I've heard a lot of stuff, and there's no judgment on my part. And I just want people to know that if you do decide to work with me, that I'm there for you 100%. I'm I'm with you in session. I'm listening. I'm providing feedback. I ask a tremendous amount of questions. So if you're looking for a therapist that like you're not just gonna kind of sit there and kind of like be with each other, which I've heard in the past is that people like prompts and like to have like a really active conversation. Some people really like to just be with their therapist and like sit in that moment. But if you're looking for a therapist that is going to ask you a lot of questions, maybe to the point where it's kind of annoying, but I can pull it back. But I'm just deeply curious about people's stories, and I just want to know about what their life has been like and what their moments in their day are like and who they are and who they think they are and all these like these big kind of questions that overlap my practice. So it's a very like deeply relational and very deeply curious, and I just want to be there with people in their journey of accessing mental health support or whatever kind of support you're looking for, gender affirming support, whatever you're looking for. I just want to be there with people on that journey. And yeah, I mean, I could talk about all the modalities that I use, but and all the techniques that I use, but um book a consultation with me and I can talk more about the modalities.
Or check out your profile page.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds, Sawyer, like you're really like really good at helping the person across from you kind of start like get that conversation going and getting them to open up to feel comfortable and to share those questions. And I think that's something we really appreciate about you also, is that you are very intuitive and you are very there and you're kind of in the moment and care about the person across from you, which is very much needed. And so we're on to our last question. I think let's wrap it up here with a sort of message of hope or something insightful you'd like to share, or just a last bit of something to share with the people who are listening, watching, or even reading today.
Yeah, I think so. There's this poem that like guides kind of my whole practice that a friend wrote me. And I don't have to read it all because it's kind of long, but I think the message that comes from that poem is that, should I just read it?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of hard to explain without reading it. But
Who's
I
it
think
by?
it's 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 anonymous because it's by a friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me just um, sorry. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this is a poem that my friend wrote me at a time when it felt like life wasn't worth living anymore and that there was no hope left. And I was really like deeply living off the hope that other people had for me. And so my friend wrote me this poem. I was driving out to the barn to see Penny and I was thinking about the universe and all the ways in which I've thought about the universe throughout my life. It started with abuse and then divorce, implosion and explosion, horses, astrophysics and math, Buddhism and poetry, therapy, and now social work. Do you remember when we looked at the stars at the side of the road in the spot with thistles in your back and I didn't believe you? I couldn't see. You asked me to tell you absolutely everything about the stars and the universe. And I told you the story of my Buddhist teacher's postcard that she got with a picture of a star on it. The message said, I found an old picture of you. The message said, I found an old picture of you. It seems super fluffy and scarfy, but that's because it's hard to see the truth in it. Our eyes can't make the connection. Our minds can't understand that we are in fact made of stardust. Our planet is made of stars, our bodies, our DNA. It's actually true. Sometimes we can't see. And at the end of a star's life cycle, it implodes. It collapses in on itself. Even though it's extremely hot, the outward thermal pressure can't counteract the weight of its collapse. Molecules collide and break apart. Atoms collide and break apart. Everything that makes up an atom breaks, and in the heat, it turns into a sort of nothing soup, a black hole. It's so dense and massive that not even light can escape. People thought for a while that a black hole was actually nothing. Light was the smallest known thing, so it couldn't get out, and then that was the end, the death of a star. gone. But recently, physicists have detected energy coming out of black holes. The radiation is not in the visible light spectrum, so it takes a special filter to detect it. But it's all there. It's all still there. All the energy, it seeps. And after a time, there's a spectacular explosion and new stars are born. I was thinking about the box of darkness and about the universe belonging to you and about your declaration that you might actually want to have babies one day. One day, I'll give you a picture. One day, I'll give you a postcard with a picture of a black hole on it. The message will say, I found an old picture of you. At that time, it was hard to see that you weren't nothing. The eye couldn't make the connection. The mind couldn't understand the energy inside. But the universe knew. The universe knew that it was all still there and that you were just getting ready to birth a star system.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think the message that I want to give to you all is that there are moments in our lives when we feel like we are absolutely nothing and that we can't continue to go on. But this is just a moment in our lives. And that it might be deep and dark and painful, but know that like people at Positive Space Consulting are here to be able to support you through that time, and know that like we're all really just getting ready to birth a star system. So that's kind of what I got as a message of hope.
I love that. That's beautiful. And just a reminder too, like we're here, but if you have your chosen family or if you have a pet, I don't know if the door's still behind me, they're sleeping over there. Those are reminders in our life. And wow, that's so beautiful. And I don't know if you mentioned this before, but Sawyer also is a poet. And you'll see one of their poems on their profile page on our website. But maybe if you're in session with them, they'll share some poetry with you. So yeah, I guess that wraps up our team at Therapist Spotlight here at Positive Space Consulting. I want to thank Sawyer so much for just opening up, being vulnerable, sharing your story. That is that can be really hard, especially in the time that we're in right now. But your story and what you have to say, like, is so beautiful and it will help other people. So I'm really happy that you shared with us today. If you would like to learn more about Sawyer, or if you are a resident of Ontario and you found that you resonated with Sawyer and you would like to receive support from them, please head over to positivespaceconsulting.ca, head to our contact page, and there you can book a free 20-minute consult with Sawyer to see if they would be a good fit for you. When you send those emails, I get them as the office manager, so make sure to say hi if you heard of Sawyer through this video or this blog. I also want to take this moment and opportunity to thank every single person watching, listening, reading this show today. It's all of us and all of you here in the queer community that we do this. This is the reason that we are here. Yeah, and to end off, we're here, we're queer, and we are absolutely not going away. So till the next one, take care, and I love you all. Bye.
Bye.